Well, Max, it looks like we got a voicemail, so let's check it out before we get into today's episode.
Hey TVPL, it's Michael from Brooklyn, first time, long time. You guys have just covered two gems from the Mike Schur production universe. The Office reboot, earlier you covered Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but I've got a special place in my heart for one of his pilots that never really took off, and that is 2019 Sunnyside. I think it made it 3 or 4 episodes before getting canceled mid-season. Would love to hear y'all's take if that just got a raw deal, if it was ahead of its time, or if it was missing, what missed, what went wrong, how did Mike Schur's show that got so much hype and promotion just not get off the ground. Thanks so much.
Well, Max, I think it's time to take a trip to Sunnyside. Hello, passengers, and welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License with service to Sunnyside, Queens. We ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember that on today's flight, we will actually be doing a quiz on the U.S. Constitution. And bad news, if you fail, you don't get to check a bag for the flight. Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, only featuring Max Singer as Rich has gone missing. Max, how you doing this week?
Oh man, we get some 7 trade representation in this sitcom. The Mets are canon in this universe. Let's go, baby.
Well, Max, this week, based off of a listener, a frequent flyer request, we are going to be talking about Mike Schur and Cal Penn's Sunnyside, not the Canadian sketch show. I just want to make that very clear before we dive in.
Also, not the style of fried eggs you may find at a diner or brunch establishment.
Oh my gosh. Well, before we dive too deep into Sunnyside, Max, can you tell first-time flyers or frequent flyers what this show is all about?
Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilots and making us want to watch more, and if we think they can be made today. Go back and stream our old episodes from wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok to see our smiling faces. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
And Max, normally Rich comes with something a little bit extra, his question of the week, but you and I were chatting before we started this episode, and you actually had a pretty fun question in mind.
Yeah, so much of this pilot's inciting action comes from Cal Penn's character signing up for a website where you can make like $30 to $50 an hour teaching people skills that you know. So I want to know, Geoff, for $30 to $50 an hour, what skill are you teaching people?
I'm teaching people how to ride a bike with no hands. This is something that I feel very, very skilled at and adept at. It's one of those things where once you learn how to do it, you just find out riding a bike is slightly more comfortable not using your hands because you are sitting upright rather than in a crouched position. And if you have a slightly bad back, like me, you'll find you want to do that only and ride only that way. But Max, I'm curious, what is your skill that you're going to teach people for $30 to $50 an hour?
Yeah, I'm taking the parents' money and I'm teaching improv to little kids. I'm getting those kids out of their comfort zones. I'm teaching them all the easy short form games just to get them babbling and running around, and the parents love it because they think that they're engaging and learning to be spontaneous. But the kids were going to do it anyway, so I'm just pocketing your cold hard cash.
What is the one... Max, as famously on this podcast, we've talked about you were in an improv troupe in many different iterations. You're currently in one.
Still am.
What's the one game you definitely aren't going to try to teach kids how to do?
Oh, man. I mean, listen, anything long form is off the table. We're not getting into Larons and Heralds. They can't handle it with their little elementary school brains. We're probably also going to avoid anything like a party quirks, because I don't think I'm going to know any of the celebrities that these kids are naming.
Everyone wants to be Mr. Beast or Miss Rachel, and it's that's the
entire
thing.
Guys, we can't all be Mr. Beast. We can't all be iShow Speed.
Oh my gosh. Well, Max, thank you for your creative question of the week. Let's talk a little bit more about Sunnyside. And before we do so, here's a quick synopsis. A former New York City councilman who finds his calling when faced with immigrants in need of his help and in search of the American dream. Well, I think that does do a really good job of giving a slight explanation of what we watched, Max. But before we take too deep a dive, how did this show get made?
Today, we're taking a look at the pilot of Sunnyside, which originally aired on September 26, 2019 on NBC. We're talking about the show's creators Matt Murray and Cal Penn a bit. Matt Murray is a longtime collaborator of Mike Schur's, who serves as today's executive producer, dating back to their time writing together on SNL. Murray is an Emmy winner for his time writing on the sketch comedy Juggernaut, and a nominee for his work on Parks and Recreation and The Good Place, while also writing on the third and fourth seasons of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, all three of which are Schur properties. And two of the three we've covered on this podcast. Cal Penn rose to prominence with his role in 2002's Van Wilder and was a comedy mainstay of the 2000s, as well as a visiting lecturer on Asian Americans in the media at the University of Pennsylvania's Cinema Studies program. I had to write it out because I couldn't just say Penn.
Yeah.
I felt like I had to elaborate that one a little bit more. He put his acting career on hold to take a role in the Obama administration as the Associate Director of the White House Office of Public Engagement. After returning to acting, Penn honed the idea for Sunnyside for about 5 years, looking for a contemporary take on the heartfelt family comedies he grew up watching in the 80s and 90s. Another inspiration for the show was the film that made Penn want to become an actor, the 1991 romantic drama Mississippi Masala, directed by Indian-American filmmaker Mira Nair, mother of NYC mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani. Per Penn, the film was the first time he saw people on screen who looked like his family and were not badly voiced cartoon characters. Penn teams up with Murray and Schur to develop the concept, and it received a put pilot commitment from NBC. Today's pilot is directed by Oz Rodriguez, a longtime segment director for SNL and Emmy winner for the creating Saturday Night Live short-form series.
Well, Max, thanks for telling us a little bit about how this show got made. Let's talk about this pilot, and let's dive in with something that seems like a little bit of a foreign concept in the year 2025, which is the idea that a politician can be canceled and kicked out of office.
What?
For potentially doing something slightly wrong. But what an interesting way of why is today different, right? We start off with a really fun political ad of this promising young new politician who's trying to enter the grounds, just to get a flash forward in time to see someone who might have been maybe beaten down. Might have been learned a little bit about what being a councilman actually is all about. So I'm curious, how does this opening to this show feel for you?
I think it's a very strong intro to Councilman Garrett Modi, Cal Penn's character. We get a very, very quick rise and fall. I like the way that we tell this story through flashbacks on digital media. You know, this is very much a show that utilizes YouTube and social media to its advantage in fun storytelling ways. And yeah, you kind of get the idea of this person who soared really high on a lot of ideas and then just crashed and burned. And I think that's just a really clear, upfront way to establish who this person is.
And we also get a very good idea of what their personality is as well, right? In this scene where we're seeing them be kicked out of an office, immediately to seeing where they're landing, right? I love this sister character that we're introduced to very early in this pilot, because it seems like, one, Cal Penn and this actress have amazing chemistry right off the bat. It's a very believable relationship, but also we learn a little bit about Cal Penn being, and his character of Garrett being, the black sheep of the family, but always like having this great gift of the gab. And that's how he has gotten everywhere, and why maybe his plans for redemption, while a little bit thin, are ones that he believes he can really capitalize on.
So much of Garrett Modi, and I just felt this throughout so much of this episode, reminds me of another NBC sitcom hit of Jeff Winger in Community. It's this person who is in a high-stakes role, Winger being a hotshot lawyer, Modi being a politician in New York City, and they are removed from their pedestals by decisions that they made that led to their downfall. They are brought down to the level of like the more common man who perhaps they've ignored for a long time. And we could get into like literal plot specifics about how it's like they find themselves entrenched with a study group full of people. They resist the call. They find out that, you know, they're actually a liar. They've been deceiving the group. And like there's so many beats in this that do feel like they took a page out of another show from 10 years prior. I don't know if you felt any of that with like Modi versus Winger.
I definitely did feel the Modi versus Winger, hypothesis, as we'll call it. We'll use that. That's going to be our new TED Talk that we go on the road with. But I think that I love the idea of comparing this to Community because, Max, as you mentioned at the top, sort of our question of the week is, what is step number one of this entire thing? Well, we have to make money, right? We have to somehow fund the way back to City Council.
You're skipping ahead. You're listing Modi's step 2 in his 5-step plan.
Tell the audience a little bit about what these steps are.
I mean, just an amazing plot device. We get Garrett Modi's whiteboard 5-step plan to redemption, which is 1, lie low, 2, get job, $. 3 and 4 are blank. He hasn't thought of them yet. And 5 is re-election, smiley face.
Which is low-key one of the best uses of the rule of threes I've ever heard in my life, where you're like, it's a rule of 5s, but it's actually 3.
I like a protagonist, though, who has a well-established shitty code of conduct.
It is so interesting. And I guess a question that I have for you is, at the beginning of this pilot, I got the sense of, hey, maybe we're not actually going to find out what happened, why Garrett was kicked out of his position in City Council. And then it seems to be a thing that we focus on a ton in this pilot. We don't only get it one time, we get it like 4 times throughout this pilot, learning what actually happened. Do you think that that was a necessary thing to reveal this early?
I think it is, because we need to understand what the fall from grace is. Because, again, we get it really early in Community, too, that he lied about his graduate degree, which meant that he couldn't actually be, barred in the state. And with Modi's blackout drunk arrest on the BQE, wandering on the highway at night, puking on a cop car, trying to bribe officers, we see this used in so many ways. It is first used as a weapon against Modi. It's the reason why he's unanimously voted out from City Council. We see it used as a tool, a way for him to get rich quick. We see it used as a way for him to feel sorry for himself, and we see it used as a stepping stone to find the piece that re-inspires him. So they use this, they get a lot of mileage out of this clip.
Yeah, they get a ton
They get a
mileage.
lot of mileage out of this clip, but they find different ways to utilize it, so it's not just like beating it over the head over and over, at least to me.
Yeah, and I mean, we referenced it, right? They use this. This is how Garrett is going to be making money. He is selling himself, selling the idea and the concept of himself for $30 to $50, with additional little, items such as T-shirts and signatures and autographs and all these fun things. He won't actually puke on someone. I love that we got this quick montage of, at first, how excited he was that he was making money from this, to finally, when we get to the study group, he is hardened. It is something that I caught. I don't think they really beat that joke down of wow, he has lived a life in a few quick clips and a few quick scenes. But by the time we're at the study group, there is a list of rules of what he will and will not do. And it seems to take everyone a little bit aback.
I was reminded so much of when George Santos was impeached from Congress and the same day was on Cameo and engaging with celebrities, and all these people suddenly were like, oh, look at this quirky guy, hey, diva. And that's kind of what Modi feels like. He takes this disastrous moment and he capitalizes on it, and we see how many people want to engage with it. There's absolutely social commentary from Penn and from Murray and from Schur at this, where these people who have these falls from grace are allowed to have these redemption arcs. The people who get kicked out and lose elections and become commentators and podcasters and cameo celebs and reality stars, and how you can take your lows and flip them into new highs in 21st century America.
But in that same scene, we get thrown a curveball, right? We think we know the rules of this game just to be introduced to this study group who has no intent of taking selfies or videos or, making jest of the situation, but still think that this man who has fallen from grace has some ability to help them get something very simple. This is another reason why today is different, right? We have a group of folks who all have different reasons why they need to become citizens or why they are not yet citizens in the United States, who are looking to just get into an immigration citizenship class in this instance. And this feels very different. And I think it's a great way, like, what a novel concept. And I say this in 2025 of normally, if we're talking about there's not a citizen, right, in a pilot, when we've done pilots, it's one person. It is one person who's supposed to be, there's the kooky, non-citizen character. And that's maybe me thinking in 90s brain. But this, I liked a lot. I thought that they did a good job of having a lot of different perspectives on trying to pursue the American dream.
Yeah, you definitely get a nice like composite of different people's look at the immigration process. You get Brady first, played by the stand-up comic Moses Storm, who is the representation of the DACA kids, the Dreamers. He's someone who came to the U.S. when he was 2. He is only known living in the U.S., but it turns out that he has a parent who overstayed a visa, and he's not technically a citizen, but he doesn't know anywhere else but the U.S. You have someone like Griselda, who is this hard-working middle-aged woman who has a running gag of every time we see her, she's working another job at every location we end up at, who's just trying to make it work. You get someone like Hakeem, who gave up a career as a surgeon in Ethiopia just for the chance to earn his green card and come here, and maybe one day he'll be a surgeon again, but he just wants to be an American. And then you get the two-hander, my absolute favorites in this entire pilot, of Mei Lin and Jun Ho, played by Joel Kim Booster and Poppy Liu, who are from a country we do not specify. Their father, quote, legally lives in international waters, and they are absolutely filthy, stinking rich. And I don't have a whole lot of info on their wants as characters, but they are the heaviest comic relief by far in this pilot.
They are one of the best parts of this pilot for multiple senses, right? Like, they put us through the ringer of holy shit, we just have rich kid energy, to Joel Kim Booster has some of the funniest lines in this entire pilot. Like, literally just knockout lines that like most comedians would kill for having one of those in their career.
The mannerisms, the physicality, everything he does, and it's just so funny seeing him like get his actor sitcom sea legs in this. And then Poppy Liu, who, if you're not watching her on Hacks, she's just eating on that show. And the two of them are a riot, and they're such a fun foil almost against Garrett. No, they're just absolute delights to watch every time they're on screen.
But I love this study group scene because we have someone who comes in and we have to watch this person deal with multiple things, right? We have watched them be a hero, a potential savior in the eyes of one group of people, while also dealing with the reality that they no longer are that person of standing. They no longer are welcome in the world that they once came from, and a reminder of their fall from grace, while trying to just figure out and do something, right? The going to the baseball game as a let me teach you about America moment is such a, well, it seemed like very like, I actually really enjoyed it a lot because I love the looking at the field and being like, how does this teach us about America? And it's like, it's the most diverse field of athletes you're ever going to see. And we're just naming off countries at the same time.
And that scene for me is made by the unseen New Yorker who yells at Garrett to sit down at the end of his big triumphant speech. It's the moment of he's trying to reclaim some of that like councilman prowess, that ability to speak to a crowd and drum up confidence and drum up support. And he's just absolutely kicked back down to earth by someone in the crowd who doesn't want to hear any of his shit.
Yeah, I mean, this is all on the promise, right, of Garrett keeping this lie up, keeping up the charade that he does have someone who's trying to help them, because he is thinking, hey, $15,000 a week sounds like a pretty solid deal for me to pretend that I'm going to, like, if you told me I'd be making $15,000 a week to pretend that I knew a city councilman, I'd have to consider it. I'm just saying, like, that you can clip this and put it on the internet.
And again, it's the Jeff Winger thing. It's the I should quit because I don't belong here and I know that I'm deceiving you, but you are offering me something that I cannot say no to in my time of need, so I'm going to keep up this charade for as long as I can till we hit our all is lost moment. You know, Garrett is still, at this point, not a hero. He has
Absolutely not.
He is spending this money on himself. He is still lying to these people. He even says that, you know, his reason for the baseball game is a little bit of A, a little bit of B in terms of like teaching them something, but also just wanting to catch a game and having the money to do so now. He is a sitcom anti-hero. He
100%.
He is in the same camp of your Walter Whites and your John Hams and your... Wait, no, John Ham's a real person. Sorry, your Don Drapers.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that all is lost moment.
You know what you did, Ham.
It's John Hamm in 30 Rock when he basically just plays John Hamm. But, I mean, this all is lost moment, I don't know about you, but I found it very striking, especially considering the political environment that we're in today. The idea that a member of this study group, Drazen, is taken by ICE. And just for clarification, right, when this pilot came out 2019, right, we're not talking about today's ICE, but we're talking about the concept of there were still people being taken by ICE for overstaying their citizenship or potentially, other reasons as well. And I mean, did you find this sombering, maybe even more sombering considering that we are in the year 2025?
It's an incredibly grounded all is lost moment, and I will applaud the show for not backing away from these types of issues, whether it's as forward as Drazen is being held by immigration and they don't know where, to somebody like Brady earlier on in the pilot saying that, you know, you run the risk of going abroad to visit a sick grandparent and you might not be allowed back into the country. And this show reminds you of the stakes that exist in the world in which this show takes place, which is also our world. It is a very, very grounded look at the reality of the immigrant experience. And while it's a little more outlandish in terms of Garrett and city council and how it treats, you know, the higher society of New York, its working class is incredibly truthful and I think incredibly resonant.
Yeah, and I mean, we do end this pilot in a way that I think is very interesting, right? We do have the Winger phenomenon, again, of admitting the lie in this situation. You have to, because otherwise you can't go into episode 2 trying to keep up this lie. But because of admitting, because of going and speaking to this Diana Barea character who's taken up the city council position to try to find this immigrant, Drazen, and try to figure out where he is, we get the crew back together. We find Garrett's meaning of what he wants to do next. And it's the first time, even though we're calling him an anti-hero, that we're like, oh, maybe Garrett is a little bit of a good guy. There's a good guy still in there all these years later. The guy that we saw in this political campaign at the beginning of this pilot.
Yeah, and I think that for all of the jokes about he left drugs in the desk in his office and he spent his teacher money on Jordans and he's trying to freeload off of his sister, there is a version that still believes in the dream that he was promoting in 2004. The version of himself in the video that has way fewer views than the one of him puking on the BQE. That Garrett is the one that's going to emerge and develop and come forth, and we're going to get away from the, you know, shameful councilman and back to the bright-eyed young candidate from 15 years ago.
And we end this pilot, you know, fulfilling the promise that Garrett has stated in city council, which is watching him teach these hopeful students, these hopeful soon-to-be citizens about the U.S. Constitution. And Joel Kim Booster having one of my favorite jokes in this entire thing, which is the follow-up of him not understanding the Third Amendment to perfectly stating the Third Amendment.
It's so funny. It's such a specific one. I love that they bring up the third so many times. And yeah, if you need a place to go, we're all going to crash at Garrett's sister's house. We're going to bring the whole party to her. It ties together a lot of plot lines. We get everyone together under one roof to end it. And we have a hopeful turn towards tomorrow.
Well, Max, that's our pilot. But I'm curious, were there things that you loved about this pilot that maybe you wanted to talk and give a little bit more shine about?
Because I can't just keep going on about Poppy Lou and Joel Kim Booster. I am going to give it to the visual gags of Griselda working at every single place we go to, every single location, whether it's also working at the bar where the study group is, her having to work concessions at the ballpark for the game, her working at the library. They are simple visual gags, and you know that you could just kind of keep playing it. Like, yeah, there's certainly commentary about it, like, the necessary steps to afford to live in a major city as a working class person, and perhaps someone who's working towards earning their citizenship. But it's a nice rule of threes series of visual gags that pay off in this pilot.
Yeah, and for myself, I really love the taxi cab scene that we get between Garrett and Hakeem. I think it is such a nice scene that has moments of comedy, right? Of, hey, you need to pay me for a taxi fare, which was very, very funny. But also, I think it does do a good job of telling another story about a character, giving us more motivations about a secondary character in this pilot, but one that I think the audience of this show, if you keep on watching, is probably going to come to love and be a fan favorite. What about wait a minute moments? What about things that cause you pause? Were there anything?
Yeah, this show for me is really bogged down in how topical it tries to be with some of its jokes. We have a lot of very specific references to Elliot Spitzer and Anthony Weiner, a lot of like New York political humor. There's a joke specifically about Wahlburgers that for me doesn't quite land because it just feels like it's a little too niche. And in getting into that like hyper specificity and getting to that kind of topical stuff, you do sort of date the show a little bit. And even though this is 2019, it felt like something a lot older to me. It didn't feel like a show that only aired 6 years ago. It felt dated in a weird way. I would also just say that we are trying to do a lot in 22 minutes. This show is trying to be a lot of things in a short period of time, and some of those are played out a little more effectively than others.
Yeah, you're hitting on the topic that I wanted to bring up, which is this show felt crammed, if that makes sense. They didn't really there were a lot of jokes in this show that could have, if given the chance to breathe, I think would have hit a lot harder. But because, we're talking about just in the study group alone, I'm doing some counting. We have 6 people, right? Just in the study group. Adding in Cal Penn, that's larger than your normal cast for a TV show. And everyone is talking. It's not just, hey, we have a few people who in the pilot are a little bit quieter and we're going to come to meet. Everyone in this show has pages worth of dialogue. And it might just be a little bit too much for a pilot. Maybe you start off with the study group being like 2 to 3 people, and then you introduce a couple more as the show goes on.
But the thing is, and again, not to harken back to this again, but with Community, we have the same situation. We have the same dynamic. And I felt like I walked away from that pilot with a better understanding of each person's wants and needs. The one-liners that introduce our characters, we go around the horn in Sunnyside, are she's like old, he's a nerd from Ethiopia, and they're rich as hell. And they're simple and they're direct, but I don't feel like I know a ton about each person in our main ensemble as we exit this. I know a lot about Hakeem because we get that one-on-one. I know a lot about Garrett, and I feel like I'm missing a little bit more from the rest of the group.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very, very fair point. Well, Max, we have one more question. This is an in-flight question. Our in-flight question is super simple. We watch on Sunnyside people trying to pass their American citizenship test. What country do you think off the bat you could just pass a citizenship test for? So, go for it. Dream big. Where do you want to live?
You say dream big. I'm going with one of the smallest countries on earth, and I'm picking Liechtenstein. I think that it is a small enough square mileage that there can't be that much I have to learn just based on like facts to proximity to size. I think I could become a Liechtenstein dual citizen with a few days.
Give me Monaco. Give me Monaco. Let me, I will sing the anthem. I will know all of the facts. Just, it's a very, very small little country, but I think I can dominate whatever citizenship test
we
there is.
Both picked like small sovereign states.
We know what our strong suit is, and it
Other
is...
country big, more history. Me pick small.
Well, let's get into the history of the show. If you want to submit an in-flight question, we'll talk about that at the end of the episode. As far as this show goes, this show had 1 season and 11 episodes. As our frequent flyer Michael mentioned, it did get canceled a little bit soon, but viewership for the show was interesting because it was not the largest, but it was very consistent. The pilot of the show got 1.77 million viewers, and the 4th episode, which was the final aired episode, got 1.2 million episodes. No. So it didn't lose nearly as much as you see some traditional shows that are kept for a full season do. If you want to watch this show, NBC has done a wonderful job of hiding it, so you can buy it on YouTube like I did. But fun fact is Cal Penn ended up actually endorsing the council member for Sunnyside, Queens for Queensborough president, which awesome. We love that. And as far as awards, this show does have a distinct honor of being the first show pulled or canceled from the 2019-2020 television season after 4 episodes, with the final 7 appearing on NBC.com, which because Peacock didn't exist at that point in time, and then it was officially canceled in the June of that following year of 2020. But that is the history of this show.
7 episodes on the internet, 4 on TV. This cast, this creative team. Oof.
Yeah, I mean, Max, Rich isn't here to quiz us on nonsensical, stuff, but I'm curious because let's talk about our final 2 questions that we talk about every week, which is, based off the pilot and the pilot alone, would you watch more of Sunnyside? And the second question is, we sort of talked about it, right? This is a politically charged comedy, which we've talked about on the show. We've talked about other politically charged comedies for sure and politically charged shows. Do you think that there's a place for this sort of television right now?
I mean, it's no 1600 Penn, obviously, if that's what you're implying. I don't think that this is the most streamlined pilot. I don't think this is a perfect pilot. I think that it has a lot of room to grow, but I would absolutely give it another episode. I think that its highs are very high, and I think that it's very ambitious in its scope. It's going to take some time, I think, for it to figure out what its identity is, and as you mentioned, I don't think it quite got a fair shake at doing that, but I definitely want to see how the arc of this season goes and how we learn more about these characters in the world we're in. As for politically charged comedy, yeah, I think the idea of focusing on someone who is city council, who ideally is grassroots, people at that community level, that resonates with people, especially as, a lot of people are looking to find local involvement and community involvement. I think it's what made Parks and Rec so effective, is that it focuses on small government. I think that's what could have made this show something fun down the line if it had the chance to get into 2nd and 3rd seasons. And so, yeah, find those interesting areas, find those stories, find those angles, because people connect to them and they want to relate to their communities, and you could find anywhere in America to tell these kinds of stories. So yeah, I'm absolutely here for more of it.
Yeah, and for myself, I definitely agree, right? This is one that I want to see it find its footing. I want to see the characters a little bit more lived in. And I'm curious about the characters, right? There were a bunch of portrayals that I thought were really fun and really interesting. But at the same time, there is a part of me that looks at this pilot, looks at some of the stuff that NBC was coming out with at this time and says, I understand why potentially it got canceled. This was a weird time in television. 2019 was a weird year. As far as politically charged comedies, we've talked about ones that we absolutely love. We talked about ones that we despise. I think that it is a very, very hard thing to do, but when you nail it, there is so much material to work with out there that it's gold, and people connect to it from all realms of the political sphere as well.
The one thing that I will say right now is that a lot of these shows do rely on a certain bright-eyed, bushy-tailed optimism when it comes to politics, whatever sector of it the shows happen to exist in. And that look right now can sort of be off-putting to a lot of people. It can feel like you're maybe ignoring the issues. I hope that one day we could get back to a place where watching something like Parks and Rec or Sunnyside doesn't feel like some sort of like glossy pie in the sky dream, or something that feels like it's left over from another era of America. But I can also understand that there may be resistance to put the funding into those kinds of shows and that kind of tone of show right now.
Couldn't agree more. Well, Max, that's our flight. But before we go, I want to make sure that folks can find you wherever you would like to be found. So, Max, where can folks find you?
Fuck it. You can find me at the Wahlburgers that opened up, and you can find me on all things social media at Maxwell Sig.
And you can find me stumbling along the BQE, but if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me at Run Geoff Run. You can find the TV Pilots License anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also see our smiling faces on YouTube and follow us on most social media platforms at TV Pilots License. If you have a question for the show, maybe a suggestion like Michael or an in-flight question, you can submit those at tvpilotslicense.com or shoot us a text or leave us a voicemail at 213-290-1713. Make sure to watch out for sneak previews of some of the stuff that we have coming up, but with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of you in the TV world again soon. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies and your fingers on the dial.
I plead the third.
See ya, everyone.